Important health story for you. The 37th edition of the Téléthon, a charitable event here in France, which aims to shed light on rare diseases, has managed to raise some 80 million euros over the weekend. In the last 2 decades, it has played an important role in helping patients with cystic fibrosis. This is a genetic disease that mainly affects Caucasian populations. And this year alone, around 100,000 people worldwide have been diagnosed across 94 countries. But since 2021, an almost miraculous treatment is improving the lung functions of patients in a big way and in just a few days. To discuss this health advancement, our science editor, Julia Seeger, joins us. Hi there, Julia.
Hi, Charlie.
Now, first, can you just tell us more about this genetic disease, cystic fibrosis?
Well, it is indeed a genetic disease. It's linked to a mutation of a gene called CFTR. So just to give you an idea, maybe we can look at this diagram to try to really understand what actually happens in the body when you have cystic fibrosis. What happens, Charlie, is that the respiratory pathways are protected by mucus that's going to absorb, if you will, dust and bacteria. But for this mucus to be able to be expelled, it needs to stay very fluid. The problem when you have this genetic modification is that the CFTR proteins that are supposed to be embedded in the membrane to regulate it are either not going to be there or are going to be abnormal, and that's going to lead to the mucus thickening, and therefore afterwards, it's going to lead to repeated infections and also chronic inflammation. Now, cystic fibrosis is indeed known to create lung problems, but also digestive issues, which leads to important weight loss and reproductive problems. It's also, Charlie, a degenerative issue. So you're going to be born with normal lungs, and as you grow older, the lung function is going to decrease. And it's also important to understand that 40 years ago, we didn't know much about this disease. Life expectancy was of about 10 years old. Now it's about 50. And in certain countries, like here in France, they've implemented a systematic screening at birth.
Now, there is a medication that has been shown to increase life expectancy. I believe it's called Kaftrio. Is that
right.
It
correct? Doesn't increase life expectancy yet, at least we don't know, but it's been put on the market in 2021. It's called Kaftrio. It's a triple therapy, meaning there are 3 different molecules. And it's indeed improving, at least for now, the quality of the lives of patients in a big way because it's increasing the lung capacity of those patients in just a few days. So the reason why it's so a breakthrough medication is that it's tackling not the symptoms, but the cause of this disease, which is the genetic anomaly I just told you about. Now, the treatment was authorized in 2021 for patients over 12. A year later, it was extended to patients over the age of 6. And just recently in France, 2 months ago, they decided to grant early access for babies aged 2 to 5. So that's very impressive. But the only thing for now, at least in Europe, this molecule is only available for people who are presenting the most common gene modification, which is called, the scientific term is F508del. But that means that 15% of patients today are not eligible for the molecule. But for the other 85%, it is indeed a miraculous drug. Why? Because we're going from the situation where people have spat and coughed their whole lives. They've been on oxygen therapy, on also respiratory and nutritional assistance. They take this medication, they're going to cough for 48 to 72 hours, and then the coughing stops. Now, what's also very encouraging is very few side effects have been reported so far, and we've also seen a direct impact on organ transplants. Why? Because cystic fibrosis used to be the leading cause of lung transplants in France. So until 2020, for instance, there were 80 cystic fibrosis patients who were transplanted every year. Since the medication's been on the market, so for the last 3 years, we've only had 8 transplants per year. So it's absolutely huge. It's still unclear whether it's really going to increase life expectancy because we don't have, it's only been on the market for 3 years, but scientists are very hopeful. And one last thing, here in France at least, the medication is reimbursed, but it's not the case everywhere. I know there are coverage issues with this medication, and there are even debates as we speak in the UK about this specific topic.
So a lot of positive news. So what are the hopes for a cure for cystic fibrosis?
Well, it's still up in the air, but when we talk about genetic diseases, of course, we're going to think about CRISPR-Cas9. These are DNA scissors that will allow for specific modification of that specific gene that's responsible for cystic fibrosis. It's still in the very early stages of the clinical trials. We're still going to have to assess not only the effectiveness, but the safeties of those type of genetic therapies. And we're going to do that for cystic fibrosis, but also for all other genetic diseases.
Great news for hundreds of thousands of people all around the globe. Julia Seeger from our Health Desk, thank you so much for that
Thank you,
story.
Taryn.